Having Marshall Moses on the program today was a breath of fresh air. Winning this NIT opener is also a breath of fresh air, regardless of how ugly it is. But when you're getting a guest on the show, because realistically, that's what everybody wants, right? Everybody wants to feel more connected at every turn. It's essential when you're growing in any industry to have some heavy hitters on board. So let's talk to somebody around the corner that's, I don't know, kind of good at bringing those type of people into the fold because he's got it like that.
You are Locked On Oklahoma State, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma State Cowboys, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Howdy, y'all, and hello, all. Welcome back to Locked On Oklahoma State, your daily stop for all things Cowboy and Cowgirl related. My name is Cody Stovall. I want to thank you kindly for stopping by to make this your first listen here on Locked On Oklahoma State. So we're just going to jump right into this here, guys. Whenever I was getting into this realm of things, right, it was always going to be about getting Oklahoma State out to the masses as much as possible, because a lot of our legends, a lot of people didn't even know went to Oklahoma State University. One of those that is on my Mount Rushmore to get on the show is Tyreek Hill. But the guy who beat everybody in America to get Tyreek Hill on, Mr. Keaton Hargett, how are you doing, brother man?
Every day's a good day, man. Excited to be here.
Well, I greatly appreciate you jumping on the show. So let's just dive into that aspect of it, right? Because if you've seen recently, Tyreek Hill is back in the news. Luckily, it's all good stuff, but he has his interview with Shannon Sharpe, and he kind of talked a little bit about his time at Oklahoma State. And I've had this argument and debate with people about how Tyreek does claim Oklahoma State. It's not like he walks around Bourbon Street hooting and hollering about his time at Western, Southern, Eastern, QF, RW, Alabama. And you were really one of the first people to get him on a pod and talk about it. So if you could please kind of refresh everybody's mind on Tyreek Hill's time in Stillwater and kind of how y'all got connected.
Yeah, for sure. So Tyreek Hill, he's a really cool dude. So to keep it kind of light, to be honest, I was working at Palomino's Mexican restaurant that's shut down now. I was bartending, and it was while I was in college. I had the podcast going, and Oklahoma State kept kicking ass that season. So 2 seasons ago,
it helped.
The game, the game was going to be in Lubbock, and I told everyone that I was working with I would pay $100 for someone to cover my shift because some random person hit me up and told me they were going. They had a spot in the car for me, a place to stay, and they would feed me whatever. And so I was like, all right, well, I'm not going to pass up that opportunity. Right. So I offered $100 for anyone to pick up my shift. By the time I got there, no one had picked it up.
Did you bring your own tortillas, or were you just going to load up on the ones in Lubbock?
Yeah. I knew we were going to get some tortilla throw in there. But yeah, whenever I realized I was going to get fired, I was kind of drunk in Lubbock. And I was like, I'm just going to message every single Bedlam champion from Oklahoma State and see what sticks. And I was pretty drunk, and next morning I woke up. It's probably one of the best hangovers I've ever had because Tyreek Hill had messaged me back out of the blue on Twitter and was like, I'm totally game to hop on the podcast. It was super excited. He's a super great guy.
That's awesome, man. And whenever you kind of got into the conversational pieces of it, I don't think a lot of people realize that we got Tyreek Hill because we were going to allow him to play running back and do a lot of the track and field stuff, which a lot of your other places like your Auburns and your Alabamas and Texases were trying to limit him, right? They were trying to keep him in this little bitty box. Oklahoma State wasn't. And realistically, the beauty of it, not even from a football standpoint, right? You've been an Oklahoma State fan for quite some time, so you know good and daggone well. We went, decades of being terrible at track and field.
Yeah.
And then when Tyreek Hill came, we also had another football player, Gerald Moreau, who was a really good high jumper, triple jumper, long jumper. that was doing the double thing, right? Football, track. And previously, we've known that there was some coaches that weren't really keen on that, right? They wanted you to focus on what you were getting paid all the scholarship money for. Well, now things have changed so much, but we're really thankful that our track program's as good as it is now. We just had our best finish, or second best finish in the history of the program, right? We were 0.02 seconds away from a national title in cross. It's just, it's crazy to see how far the track program has come, right?
Yeah, I mean, I got a lot of good friends on the track team. I think they really work their ass off. I've been real close to them for a long time. I mean, yeah, Stillwater is pretty small, so you run into the right people at the right times. And man, I'm super proud for them. And like, certain people like Tori Ortiz, for example, who's really elevating the Oklahoma State brand as well as her own brand. Being able to go and accomplish something like that is absolutely incredible. I'm so proud of all of them,
Well, and you actually, so you did a lot of work with student athletes directly, whether it be NIL type of stuff or just campus related. Kind of break that down a little bit. How did you get into the fold to where you were going to be one of the guys that these student athletes called, right? I mean, come on, bro. Don't downplay it. You got in good with a lot of very meaningful people that do nothing but help you grow and help you get better. And how did you get tied into it? How did you become that guy for the student athlete?
So with the student, so a lot of my family played college football and pro football, and I always joke because like I'm not athletic, so I just let them do that, and I'll just talk about it. So I'm literally the one who talks shit on Twitter.
There you go. There you
go. Essentially, when it came to like getting in with the athletes and everything, I always have cared about how the athletes are taken care of. My stepdad is in the Hall of Fame for TCU, and he tore his ACL whenever he got drafted or got picked up by the Colts within the first couple of weeks, and man, he does really good for himself, and he's a great person in my life. But like that kind of like was like a shining beacon in my life where I was like, okay, well, I want to do something where I can help athletes because like especially as a kid, you look up to athletes as heroes.
Yeah, yeah.
So whenever like, for example, like I'll make it kind of recent. Spencer Sanders is one of my really good friends, and a lot of people were bashing on him and everything, even before he threw the 4 interceptions in the Big 12 championship game. And I was always kind of the guy that would like stand up for him, whether I was working for Barstool Sports or doing the OKSTProbs deal. And it wasn't so much to get an in as much as it was to be a friend. And I really like that type of lifestyle I was living, as opposed to, there's a couple of accounts out there that just go out there just to hunt down and pick on these athletes. And it's like, dude, they're great guys. And they're doing something great for Oklahoma State, and they're representing our brand,
Right.
And that's what ultimately I think kind of helped the athletes realize I'm not just trying to talk shit about them and kind of trust, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, 100%, man. So whenever you're going through this, and as you referred to, you're also simultaneously learning the ins and outs of Jack Daniels. So when did you really kind of, decide that you were willing to do anything to help yourself without really having a lot of cares in the world, man?
Where did I learn how to help myself in all this?
What was the moment that you were like, you know what? I got this. This is me. I can do this.
To be honest, and this is going to sound like really, really corny. So when I went to go tour Oklahoma State, I toured a couple other schools. I'm originally from Fort Worth, Texas. And whenever I went to tour Oklahoma State, it was freezing cold, and I hate the cold. And I just remember walking the campus and being like, man, Des Bryant walked these halls, Barry Sanders, Thurman Thomas, and those are just big name legends off the top of my head. But I was like, these guys did a lot, and they started it all here. And if I go here, I can start this. And I might not be scoring touchdowns on a Saturday, but I can definitely take on the world exactly where they started it. If that makes sense.
Well, and I'm actually very glad that you rolled into that, right? As we talked a little bit off air, that's what I'm in this for, is how frustrating it was growing up, knowing that you had to get a bunch of OU crap fest shoved down your throat every day in order to absorb 10 to 15 minutes of Oklahoma State news. So it didn't matter how big of a fan you were, the amount that you were privy to was such a small amount, right? It was no wonder that our fan base was already, a pretty small group as it is. I like that side of the fan base, realistically speaking, because it gives us the ability to care about other sports, right? Let's face it, OU cares about what? Fire that pigskin. Anything that doesn't involve pigskin, they don't really give 13 craps. And so we pride ourselves on legitimately being fans of the university all the way around. Yeah, some of it's because, times were tough for a long time. But nonetheless, it allowed us to adapt and overcome. And now as you're seeing some more people that are getting out there and covering Oklahoma State a little bit more, what do you think is the thing that people tend to miss when they're trying to kind of get themselves established?
Established with Oklahoma State?
Just in general, in the sports game, whether it be from the media side, relations or marketing or NIL.
Yeah, I have 3 younger brothers, and 2 of them go to Arkansas now, and the third one's just living in Arkansas with them, and they're all pretty young. They're all under 21, and they're super cool. But like the advice that I give to them is, if you want to establish yourself, like you just have to do it. You can't really wait on anyone, like especially in like sports. I feel like the drive and everything like that, everything you watch on ESPN 30 for 30 or A Football Life, whatever it may be, like it all starts with them realizing. And I was like, you just have to realize what the fuck you're good at, right. And then you can go in and do exactly what you need. Like it's not a matter of waiting. That's one thing that I felt like I always prided myself on was like in 2000. People don't realize I had a podcast before the Probs cast. It was called Keaton Hargett, and it probably wasn't the best. But I started it before I went to Oklahoma State, and then I continued it at Oklahoma State. But I had some family issues come up, so I stopped doing that, and immediately I had to pick back up, if that makes sense. So it just a matter of like getting that first foot forward, and then you can kind of figure it out.
I love it, man. Well, we've got a lot more to get into. We're going to talk a little bit of basketball. We're going to talk about a little bit of the quarterback battle because you brought up Spencer Sanders. We've been so lucky for a few years now not to really have to worry about the quarterback battles in spring, right?
Yeah.
So we don't exactly have that luxury. So we're going to hit some of that. We're going to clown on the NCAA a little bit. Thankfully, our Cowboys pulled it off, which allows us to do so. But real quick, I do have to let the fine people out here know that today we are brought to you by FanDuel. Guys, you know that Built Bar's kind of the bee's knees for me when it comes to some of the sponsors that we have. But if you're getting into the game of betting, now that we're a little past halfway into the NBA season, you got to download FanDuel. It is America's #1 sports book. Get your hands on our no sweat first bet. It's up to $1,000 back on bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win. Download FanDuel Sportsbook app today. It is safe, secure, and super easy to use. You already know you can bet on anything from money lines, point scores, threes drained. The list goes on and on and on. It keeps you very entertained and very engaged. Plus, FanDuel also lets you combine your bets for same-game parlays. Don't miss your chance right now to get in on the no sweat first bet up to $1,000 back in bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com/lockedon. Again, that is FanDuel.com/lockedon. Go there now to learn more. Make every moment matter more with FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NBA. All right, Keaton. Well, let's talk about this basketball crap fest a little bit. All right. So,
yeah, for sure.
When I talked about it, I think yesterday on the show, when you were growing up, if you believed in UFOs, you were a crazy person, a conspiracy theorist. If you believed that there was anything weird about the JFK assassination, you were a conspiracy theorist and a crazy person yet again. Yet here we are being engulfed in news on a daily basis now that, dang it, this conspiracy theory word might need a new definition. And I feel like we fit into that as well. the conspiracy theory crap that the NCAA has an axe to grind with Oklahoma State, it's over. It's not a theory anymore. It's flipping realistic, and I can't stand it. But whenever you've talked to players, right? How hard do you think it is, for them to be able to have their dreams set on reaching this, knowing you should be there, but then finding a way to dive deep down and come out with some NITWs, right? That's the thing of it is, should we win the NIT? Yes. Are we super stoked to be there? Probably not.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I don't think I'd want anyone else coaching than Mike Boynton when you look at him at face value, because I mean, he cares more than I think any coach in the NCAA cares in just about any sport. I mean, he's jumping into the stands after wins.
Yep.
And that's something incredible to have. But it's like, man, when the shots don't fall, the shots don't fall. And I mean, I don't know what else to do about it. I mean, it's almost painful to watch in first half of just about any game.
Well, and it is crazy. We want to throw Keaton's out here. Keaton Page is on staff, one of the greatest shooters in Oklahoma State history. Yet, we, at one point in time tonight, we were shooting 24% from the field. Okay. That is 3 of our last 4 games that we've shot under 28% from the field. It's hard to beat the blind, deaf, and mute school of excellence when you're shooting in the 20% range. Like, I don't understand it. And then you have somebody like a Bryce Thompson. Okay, help me, help you. How does somebody shoot 35, 40% from the 3-point line, and then they go to the free throw line and look like Ibrahim Thomas? How does this happen?
Yeah, I don't know. It's weird because it's almost like the fundamentals feel like they're there. You know, we're getting open looks and everything like that, but
yeah,
when it comes down to it, just like I said, like if the shot's not going to fall, the shot's not going to fall. And you know, I don't think Bryce Thompson's necessarily a bust, but I mean, he was supposed to be the follow up to Cade Cunningham, and shit, we could have had him and Cade Cunningham at that one point. But I mean, I don't know. I feel like I'm all over the place with it. But you go back to the Cade Cunningham year, the COVID year, and it's like we can't get past the round of 32.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just this weird battle that I think even Mike Boynton is a little stumped on, because they have to be falling in practice, right? It's just, why can't it translate to a game?
Well, you know, that seems to be the $1 million question, right? The man can recruit out of his mind. We got, I don't know if spoiled's the right word, but I guess you could say that with Travis Ford, because he recruited very, very well.
Yeah.
And you know, it didn't quite pan out. Now here we are again, and there are a lot of people in our fan base that are like, "Oh, great, it's Travis Ford all over again," and it's really frustrating because I mean, if you look at it practically, the dude's been here 6 years. Yeah, the COVID year, nobody got to play in the postseason. Okay, so that's gone. Then he gets screwed over a $300 bullcrap infraction, so that's gone. And then this year we get screwed again with the resume. Was insane, right? Ken Palm, number 43, number 6 strength of schedule overall, most quad 1 wins of any of the 8 teams, kind of floating on the bubble there. It's just, it is preposterous, right? And the thing of it is, like, you look back at it, there was, I don't know, talk going around that NCAA's had an axe to grind ever since Eddie, because they wanted to get Eddie when he was at Kentucky in trouble, and it didn't quite pan out. And they always wanted to get him in trouble here. Right. And it's like the NCAA's been fishing. And then the wonderful Thayer Evans Sports Illustrated madness. The NCAA was like all aboard that train. And then they had to eat a lot of crow. And instead of being like, you know what? Okay, Oklahoma State, we're sorry, we'll leave you be. They were like, we're going to get you.
Yeah,
we're going to get you one of these days now.
Yeah, I made for the 2021 year, I made it said F the NCAA gear. Are we live on Twitter?
Are we live on Twitter?
Yeah, or is this streamed to Twitter as well?
It will, yes.
Oh, okay, it's later on. Okay. Yeah, I was about to say I have.
I mean, if you're gonna drop some craziness on us, I mean, feel free to go ahead, brother man.
I made merchandise whenever I was in college. And it said F the NCAA. But I had my Twitter handle down the side. It was pretty cool.
That
but
is great.
yeah, and I was a little nervous too, because like all the alumni were like, "Oh, this isn't what Boynton stands for," and everything. But Boynton saw it and told me he loved it. So I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't say that live.
Well, maybe because it speaks a whole bunch of truth, man.
Yeah, I liked how he put the student section behind the bench too, because I wore it behind there. Pretty proud. I was on ESPN and everything. My mom wasn't too proud, but whatever. But yeah, no, it was pretty neat. But at the same time, like I don't know, man. I feel like every single time there's something to do with the NCAA and violations, somehow it can get roped back to Oklahoma State, and sometimes you can see the pattern, and sometimes I'm just dumbfounded because ultimately, like I was going back to, is like Boynton is kind of the man when it comes to that kind of stuff. Like he went out and named every single one of the NCAA members who conducted the cert and everything, and I mean it's hard to match a guy like that in his past. I feel like I'd be doing the same thing,
100%.
Like
man.
if I were the coach, like I don't know, maybe he shouldn't act like me, but I feel like I'd be doing the same exact thing. I don't know what's going to change that about.
Well,
what's going to change with the NCAA.
Bro, that's one of the reasons that Mike Boynton is so lovable. His ability to interact with the fan base and the students and build it. You know what I mean? You've heard the saying, if you build it, they will come. And you saw some of that this year, right? We did get crowds of 10,000, 11,000, 9,000, quite a few times. It still frustrates me, as I'm sure it does you, because – right. Okay. So I've had Caleb Boone on this program and Marshall Moses on this program, two recent basketball players. What would you guess is the one singular moment that they both said made them recruit almost immediately? Or just what?
Mike Boynton.
No. What atmosphere?
GIA.
Yeah.
GIA, baby. GIA's killer, man.
When you get 13,000 people in Galgraiba, I think the only things that are comparable are Fog Allen and maybe Coach K Court, right? And I know that the Richter scale thing, that we led that for quite some time when the roof was put on the original Galgraiba. So the history in there is amazing. His recruiting. Yeah. So let's talk about that a little bit. I'm sure you're very up to speed on this class that we have coming in. More importantly than the number 9 ranked class that we have coming in, how many of these guys do you think come back? Because coming into the season, I think it was a foregone conclusion that Musa was probably going to be gone, right? Yeah. I think if everything would have went according to plan, Bryce Thompson most likely was going to be gone. Avery Anderson, another one that you didn't really know if he was going to be able to carve out a role, come back again. So he's most likely gone. Same with Caleb Boone. Well, now you look at it, they didn't complete what they came back to complete, right? Let's face it. And none of them, not all because of their own doing, but none of them really raised their stock enough to be a surefire next level guy. So we could get all of them back. We could get none of them back. What say you, sir?
Yeah, I mean, and this might sound kind of bad, but like, maybe it's time for just change in general. And like, I love every single one of those guys. Avery Anderson went to the same high school as one of my younger brothers. And they like knew each other. Like I've hung out with Avery multiple times. I know Caleb Boone very well. And it's nothing against them, but sometimes change is good for a locker room. And if they want to go, then, the best of luck to them. If they want to stay, we love to have them. And ultimately, I think Boynton he just recruits like an animal, and he puts Oklahoma State in almost every single race that needs to be, or that's within reason. And I think Boynton can kind of put us in that right direction, even though sometimes if you look at it on paper, it doesn't look the best. But I don't know, maybe I'm drinking the orange Kool-Aid, but I definitely feel like he can definitely guide us in the right direction. So I'm not afraid either way, if that makes sense.
Well, I don't think you're drinking too much Kool-Aid. I will say this, though. He's had a couple postseason taken away from him without his control. The way he handled last season, I don't know that there's a coach in the country that could have handled it better. right? That could have galvanized part of the locker room in the way that he did in order to get people to buy in for this coming season. But dude, you about made my head hurt there. Whenever you were saying if they want to go, if not, not. Like I had Gundy flashbacks, and it was like,
Yeah, I have. I'm
PTSD
pretty
in me,
mad.
man.
It's funny because whenever I first started all this, like I didn't have many connections out there, and like I was very adamant and I was very hard on certain parts of opinions and everything. But it's like now I know all these guys, and it's like 10 times harder for me
It
because like
is
although I want them to succeed, I also need Oklahoma State to do great,
right.
and I want the best for both parties, but sometimes I feel like you can't get your cake and eat it too, if that makes sense.
And that's a fact. It is a fact. I think it's fair that don't let it cross over into betting. That's when it screws you. Like if
Yeah, I
you
don't gamble on sports that I that
okay, well
my
then
own
I
teams.
don't either then.
No,
Also.
that for my own teams, I don't. Man, I can't do it.
Oh man, maybe that's something I should live by because I do pretty good and I have a lot of fun with it, but I always get burnt by my Cowboys, man. I
Yeah,
especially
yeah,
Ricky Fowler. Speaking of OKSTProbs, I've lost so much money on Ricky, man. I don't even want to. Maybe I shouldn't have opened that can of worms there, but
yeah.
I did because your Twitter handle picture. That's
Yeah,
something that gets talked about quite a bit, my brother.
yeah. It's funny. My mom thought that was me for the longest time too, which was kind of cool. I
How
was
long
actually
did
at
you
the
ride with it?
I didn't.
Oh,
My mom is like not cool with that kind of stuff. So whenever it was funny, my mom started coming up to Stillwater, and like I'd made it pretty known that I was running OK State Probs, and not that I'm some legend around campus or anything, but like I said, I have a pretty good connection with the athletes and
right.
everything, and people were calling me Probs. My mom was like, "Why?" And so I showed her why, and she was like, "Oh, okay, well that's cool." And like obviously she listens to my podcast or did whenever I was running it. So that was pretty cool. But yeah, no, I'm a big fan of Ricky. I actually was at the Players Championship this last weekend
Nice.
in Ponte Verde in Florida, and so it was super cool. It was super cool. And Ricky was wearing his orange. I was on the Sunday, so man, it was,
Oh.
and I saw a bunch of Oklahoma State people out there.
So, okay, who wins a major first, Ricky or Victor?
It's looking like Victor is actually my regular whenever I was a bartender at Palomino's.
What?
Yeah, because Victor's kind of cheap. And so like he like drives his like beat up like car or whatever. He doesn't fly. I know that's like a
Awesome.
thing. But
Wow.
he started coming in. Well, I would always give out margaritas or shots to whatever athletes would come in, which probably I said Palomino's is shut down. I hope that's not the reason, but I definitely was tossing them. Well, Victor realized that I was
No,
doing
I'll
that.
talk. I'll talk to you off air. I've heard some fun stuff about Palomino's.
Dude, Palomino's is great, man. I was the bartender, and anytime an athlete came in, I would always because I wanted to get to know him. So I was like,
Yeah,
"Hey, you're going to drink here. This is your safe space." And
yeah.
outside of Victor, I wouldn't drop names, so I'm kind of glad I caught myself there. But yeah, no, Victor would
Podcast,
come in.
bartender, psychotherapist. Got you.
Yeah, man, I got a lot going on in my life. So yeah, no, I was a bartender at Palomino's. It was really cool. And then Victor, yeah, he would come in all the time, and I would buy him, or I'd throw him a shot or a margarita, whatever. Actually, if you want a good one, the first time I met him, we were actually at Outlaws, and he was
Okay.
upstairs. It was late, and we're at the upstairs bar. And he was standing next to me, and I had a couple, and so I looked over and was like, "Yo, are you Victor Hovland?" And he looked at me and said, "I hate that guy," and walked away. And I was like, "Oh." So I went and bought him a shot and was like, "Hey, I just want to shake your hand. If you want to take the shot with me, that'd be a cool story too." That I'd probably say on a podcast later on in life. So yeah,
That's
he
awesome,
was
dude.
super cool. I got to watch. Yeah, they teed off like almost back to back. I think there was one team or one set right between them, and yeah, it was super cool. I went with this with my honey, and we rolled down, and it was funny because she had never been to a golf tournament, so she got to see Victor and Ricky back to back, and man, they had the biggest crowds. It was awesome.
That is really cool, man.
Yeah,
All right, brother. Yeah. So you mentioned it a couple times, the podcast thing, and I know you've been so crazy busy that you've been reluctant to kind of re-drop and all that fun stuff. So I'll be the guy to let everybody know that this dude is he's gonna be somebody you need to follow. He's a must follow. Not only that, but dude, I mean your show, man. Your show is about to kick back off. It might take a little bit of time still yet, but I know it is, and I know how big it's going to be. And people ask me all the time, do you think that the water could ever get muddied down with a bunch of stuff? And I honestly, like OU has 33,000 podcasts, right? And if you watch half of them, it's terrible. I do watch them, to be honest with you, because it makes me better at my job. Because to me, bro, here's my biggest frustration is when you get on and you hear somebody and it just feels like they're reading something from like a news article, and then that's the show. It's like, well, man, what's the point of getting behind a microphone and in front of a camera if you're not going to at least provide something that other people don't? That's the way I've always looked at it. And when you have, somebody like yourself that is going to be vital in helping spread the Oklahoma State message as far and wide as physically possible, I freaking love it, dude. I love it. The Oklahoma State community, it can't get big enough fast enough, in my personal opinion, because we should be bigger than we are. We should be more known than we are.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm not just, I know football drives the bus, right? I get it. But at the same time, baseball, we're typically right in the mix, top 10, top 15. Softball, we've now kind of climbed up the charts as to the only team that could potentially maybe compete with OU every single year for national titles. We talked earlier about track and field being the second best ranking in their history. The list goes on and on and on. And, from an Oklahoma State fan perspective, growing up, it wasn't always that way.
Yeah. With a lot of my family playing college football and everything, like I kind of got a taste of everything, and none of my family went to Oklahoma State. So it was kind of like a shock that I was going to Oklahoma State. However, I really liked the brand. And like as a kid, I mean, I was a sports nut, so I have to remind myself that like, we're not the biggest brand out there, I guess, is probably the best way to say it. But like at the same time, like whenever Des Bryant got drafted to the Dallas Cowboys, and I was a huge Cowboys fan growing up, like I knew that he went to Oklahoma State, and like I was like obsessed. And I have Barry Sanders posters on my wall and stuff like that. And like I've always loved Oklahoma State. And to be honest, as growing up in Texas, like I just hated the Sooners. So the enemy of my enemy was my friend. And whenever I chose Oklahoma State, like I said, I just felt it like walking around, like, and it was like free. It wasn't even like snowing or icing or anything. It was just one of those really cold, like dark days. And I was like, man, for some reason I got to go to school here. And I felt like anything I could do to elevate the brand and everything that Oklahoma State has done for me, if I could give even half of that back, I think the brand would be as big as anyone else's.
All right, give me your number one, like bucket list. Who do you want on the show? For instance, like I think most people's would be Barry Sanders. I feel like that's common. You cheated though, because Tyreek's up there for me. So who's that guy that you really would love to get on the show?
Yeah, I had Barry Sanders Jr. on a couple times. He's one of my good friends. He's a really, really cool guy. Barry Sanders, it's so hard because like I feel like he's obviously the greatest college football player of all time. And so I feel like anytime it's like, oh, if you could bring back one person to your team this year, who would it be to help you win a national championship? Everyone's going with Barry. So I try to go off the beaten path. But it's like a shocker that kind of throws everyone off. I really want Jimmy Johnson to come on.
Oh, nice.
Not just because I'm a huge like Dallas Cowboys fan, which I am. Right. I could probably recite his football life like verbatim the entire time because my dad loved Jimmy Johnson. And man, I actually have, it's probably not in here, I have an Oklahoma State like glass of the record from the year that Jimmy coached, and he's like on the glass. It's really cool. But I'd probably have him because I'd really want to talk to him about like his time at Oklahoma State, his rivalry with Barry Switzer, his like how he recruited so well, and because he really changed the program around for the better, which ended up leading to getting Thurman and Barry and like all these people, and people don't realize that was a huge turn of events for our program's history.
Well, I think that actually is a really good one because he is kind of a forgotten Cowboy, kind of like Tyreek Hill, right? There's a lot of people who don't realize he coached at O State. I think some of it is because of the misconceptions, right? With his involvement and us going through the blacklist probation ban that we did,
Yeah.
during that part of time frame. So I think, unfortunately for him, it's because he's more associated with that than being at O
Yeah,
State. O
alumni
State
don't
fans
like
don't even
him.
talk about him a lot.
Yeah, but I mean, when you think about it, and like, this isn't a knock on alumni or anything, but like, uh, our alumni are very, very traditional, and so like, whenever I'll give an example, like, um, whenever I was going to get a bunch of people on my podcast, well, I started selling ad space, and I was
Okay.
totally going to be a sellout. I was like, dude, you'll listen to 30 minutes of ads because I'm broke. So like, whatever I can do to get my bills paid, I need to get it paid. And so whenever I got Tyreek Hill on, I didn't have a job, so I didn't have anything to do, and I would go to each and every single like small business in Stillwater at least 3 or 4 times a week, if not a day, and until they would tell me they would give me money for ad space. And a couple of them, whenever I told them I was getting Tyreek Hill on, they kicked me out. And that's whenever I realized, like, yeah, that's my most listened to podcast, obviously, and I can tout about that for as long as I want to. But ultimately, like, if I wanted to get Jimmy Johnson on, whether he's someone that people liked or not, they're going to listen, if
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Yeah,
And
absolutely, man.
he's a great figure. I mean, like, we can be mad about him or not. If I got him on, I got him on.
Yeah, dude. Like I said, man, he was, whenever I got into this, he was on my top 5, which is what put you on my radar. And I was like, all right, this guy got him on. This is flipping awesome, right? And
Yeah.
that's what got me following you. And you do have a pretty daggone good following. I didn't realize that you had kind of picked up some of the OK State Prob stuff from a previous iteration, and you actually did a remarkable job maintaining what was already kind of being built. So whenever you continue the badassery department, whenever you get the pod going back again, is there something that you
Oh, you put yourself on mute. There
is
you
there
go. What's that?
something that you want to do a little bit different than previously?
Yeah. We kind of talked about this before. I was broke, so like there was certain stuff that I was doing that, like, that, yeah, I can improve on, whether it be audio, a better recording room. Obviously, I didn't set up for a podcast today, otherwise it'd look a little bit more like your side.
All good, man.
But yeah, no, like, the audio visual, and then, like, I feel like I built a pretty good, brand, and like the
Following,
connections
yeah.
I'm gonna have and everything, or I kept the brand alive at least. And yeah, I mean, there's certain people on that I could have had on, like, that would have blown people's minds.
Right.
Like, for example, like, Spencer Sanders, me being friends, like, I could have gotten him the day that he decided to hit the transfer portal. Same thing I did with Shane Illingworth. Shane Illingworth, the day after he decided he wanted to transfer, he came on the Probs cast on
Right.
Spotify, which is
I
super
love it.
cool.
Yeah,
Shane Illingworth's a great kid.
that's how we kind of got to chopping it up. I was like, bro, why do you not do this? Because there's a lot out there, but doesn't necessarily mean there's a lot that are awesome, right? I mean,
Yeah.
some people are just harder to listen to than others. I guess
Hey,
that's the most.
podcasts can suck. It like they can, and you've got to be yourself. To be honest, I mean, who wants to listen to someone that's boring? No
And
one.
that's it, bro. Like, that's, people try to overcomplicate it, I think, right? And
Yeah,
it's funny when I got this stuff with Locked On, right? They had plenty of applicants that were professional journalists that have done all this stuff before. But I sold myself on, like, hey, listen, I love this stuff. I bleed this stuff. I don't mind watching 10 hours of film a day every single day. Like, I don't mind sleeping and breathing it. And I just like to have fun, man. Right? We were talking off air, and you asked me a couple times if we were recording yet. The same thing happened earlier with Marshall Moses.
it's
He
gonna
kept
sound
being like,
awful.
he kept being like, wait, what? How should I answer? I'm like, no, we're not going yet. Just go. And he's like, man, you keep tripping me out. I keep thinking you already started.
I just
And
want
it's
to make
just,
sure I'm not leaking any information, man.
it's just, yeah, make it have fun, man. Why do people watch podcasts? Well, it's because they don't need to hear all the radio crap all the flipping time. They don't need to
Yeah,
hear all that. It just, make it relaxed, make it fun, make it a conversation. And it allows people to go with the flow. That's just my personal opinion. I don't really know a whole hell of a lot. I've been wrong once before back in 97. Maybe this is another time. Yeah. But yeah, man, whenever you get back in the podcast stuff, make sure you give me a holler if there's anything I can do to help. I would absolutely love to do so. Before we skedaddle on out of here, I did want you to talk a little bit about the NIL stuff, because the NIL collectives that we have in place, having a multitude of them does get a little bit confusing, but I think the way we're doing it is very, very intelligent. But you were part of the crew working behind the scenes to get it going, like even like Pokes with a Purpose.
Yeah.
I've had, we've had like Kenyatta Wright. He's made himself available for some spaces before, and he's talked a little bit about it. But talk to us a little bit behind the scenes. How was that build up? Because you guys did a really good job keeping it under wraps. I'll give you that. Everyone thought our NIL was going to be terrible and we were going to fall off the face of the earth. And now you're seeing it come out. We're like top 3, top 4 in the Big 12.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it kicks ass. It's Pokes with a Purpose. 100% of the donations go straight to the athletes. So it's really, really cool. And they work like hands on. So like, a lot of stuff that I do was more social media whenever I was helping them out. Just because there's not many people in Stillwater who know how to do social media. So I was like, yeah, man, whatever I can do to help for the America's Brightest Orange, just let me know. And so I was helping them out a lot for that.
Love them.
Yeah, man.
I'm learning, man.
But yeah, like they help out immediately with all athletes and whatever they need. They're super. They listen. And the only reason I'm really saying like they listen is because it's a combination of things of like what I've heard from other athletes at other schools versus what Pokes with a Purpose is doing. Because
right.
I mean, even players that have transferred, I'm still close with them, and I'll hear about wherever they are and things they do with NIL. And I've always wanted to know how that market works, because right now it's the wild west, and I feel like Oklahoma State has a pretty good hold on how they manage it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, dude. What about the latest move from Brett Yormark? Are you kidding me?
Yeah. He's a pretty good. I like what he's doing so far.
Well, yeah, you like what he's doing, because he's somebody that if you're gonna look at multiple sides of the industry, well, the way he's been able to climb up, right, and what he was able to do with NASCAR and get it bigger, get it expanded, get it more of an international thing, he blew that thing out of the water. And he did it again with Rock Nation, and then the Brooklyn Nets and his connections with the NBA. And now we're the only conference to have a conference-wide combine. And that's beautiful for the NFL, right? And we're the only ones doing it. What a brilliant move, man. Because people always talk about what's the downside of the Big 12 is they don't put enough guys in the NFL. Okay, so if you have a more ready-built pipeline from the NFL,
it all works out well. I like everything he's doing so far. I think he's putting us in the right direction. I was kind of shocked that for the new schedule for football, that like he didn't put OU and Texas in a position where it's like, UCF, then BYU, then Cincinnati, then back home, then back up to. I was surprised he didn't pull one of those, but I mean, he sounds like a classy dude. I mean, I like him so far.
Right? Yeah, and the best part to me is, after all of that Paul Feinbaum level mouth breathing that we've been hearing from the Pac-12 for a couple of years, old George Kliavkoff done shoved his foot in his mouth, and Brett Yormark's making me enjoy every minute of it, man. It's like, he jumped into a fight, or as a matter of fact, he started a fight that he wasn't ready to finish, and he didn't expect Brett Yormark coming in. So is it 3 years? Is it 5 years? Is it 2 years? Come on, give me a breakdown. How long is it before the Pac-12 is dead? Because I think I know they're a dead conference walking as it sits right now. How much longer before everybody stops the bleeding for them?
USC and UCLA still have this year, right?
Yep.
Yeah, so I think that they would wait it out this year because Lincoln Riley's kind of kicking ass for USC. And then you got Deion Sanders. So I think people are going to kind of wait that period out. And then within the next 1 to 2 years, that's whenever schools are going to start getting poached by either the Big 12 or Big Ten, whatever it may be. And that's kind of the direction that I see. But I mean, who knows? Who knows? Yeah, I mean, it's college football. Who would have thought
man,
USC and UCLA would be going out the Big Ten?
I legitimately foresee us, right? I think that there's a very clear distinction between who the third best conference is going to be, right? Because if we go to these super conference things, which it does seem to lend itself to go to that direction, it's going to be the SEC, the Big Ten, and who? Well, clearly it appears to be the Big 12 because the ACC, their contract stuff is wild. It's an absolute disaster. So they're not going to be relevant anytime soon because of their own limitations. The Pac-12 is I guess they have some sort of a pulse still, but not much. So we get to set ourselves up in a pretty good position. You already mentioned Deion Sanders. Who's going to help marketing in a new conference better than Deion Sanders?
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And it's prime time. It's hard to say he's not going to bring attention. I feel like I see him everywhere now, and I think that it's so weird to me how the Pac-12 can't retain their own players from their own regions.
Yeah,
because like all these California kids go everywhere else other than the schools in their own state.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. I think it's going to be interesting to see what the future holds because, as we all know, everything can literally change overnight.
Yeah. All right, man. Okay, I got another one here for you. I'm not going to let you off the hook quite yet.
Yeah, for sure.
Who is the leading quarterback for Oklahoma State Cowboys next season? Not who's going to be opening day starter. Who's going to be the one who kind of takes the mantle moving forward?
It's a shame, and I point back to Spencer Sanders, but like it's such a shame this is going to be the last bedlam, and he's not going to be the quarterback because this kind of, if you know Spencer, man, this has his name written all over it.
Yeah.
But I would assume Alan Bowman would be the guy because he's coming in with 1 year left, 2 years left.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I mean, he was the first Texas Tech quarterback to come in and win in like the last 10 years that he did in 2018.
Well, and we had a 9-game winning streak going until he did he
yeah.
He beat
us.
He
did good. That was my first time watching Oklahoma State. I was a freshman then, and that was my first time. That was my first time getting to watch that. So that kind of sucked. But I just remember him being like a hell of a quarterback. And I think that he's going to be the guy to my knowledge, and I think he's going to be the one to take us there. But if it ends up being Garrett Rangel, it can be him. He was a stud at Frisco. And I think he can continue to win. My mom, I remember the first time I heard about him, actually it was like right after I heard about him, my mom texted me and was like, yo, I'm watching this kid at Frisco. My mom goes to all the high school football games.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, she was like, mother of 4 boys. But yeah, she was like, yeah, this he's a good looking kid. And apparently he's going to Oklahoma State. And I was like, oh yeah, Garrett Rangel. And I think this year was kind of wild because Spencer was injured. Majority of the time. I think it kind of got thrown on to him at the last minute, and then we kind of got in this weird quarterback 2 and 3 duel between Garrett Rangel and Gundy's son. And I don't know. I like all of them. I think Alan Bowman. I just want someone who wants to go in and make sure we win the last bedlam at least. Like
I think
that's pretty good bragging rights.
I think Alan Bowman's going to do pretty daggone well. I really do. Primarily because the offensive line, right? Our offensive line play has been pretty horrendous the last few years, right? We got lucky with Jalen Warren. Thank you, buddy. But the one thing that Gundy always talks about is you cannot replicate repetitions. And we got every O-lineman back. Plus, we got a couple pretty big transfer guys that are going to be able to help. And our recruiting class for O-linemen, in my opinion, was actually pretty good, right? Even like an Isaiah Kima, yes, we're going to wait on him to have to come back from his mission trip, but he's somebody that was a 4-star get very late, a very big addition. Yeah, man, I'm really excited about the quarterback play because of the simplification offensively, right, that we're going through. We're going to lean behind some of this running game. We could talk about Elijah Collins, Ollie Gordon, Jade Nixon, the whole 9 yards, but we'll save that for another show, man. We'll save that for another one. We're creeping up on it here. So is there anything else that you want to plug or you want to let the fine folks out here know? Because you are a must follow on Twitter. You
Yeah, I
come
appreciate
out
it.
with some funny stuff, dude.
Yeah,
And I appreciate it.
yeah, and I love that you had me on the show, man. I really appreciate it. It makes me really want to get back into it and start up again. So I appreciate all your time.
Not a problem, brother, man. All right, so tell the people, where can they find you on the Twitters and the other
Yeah,
stuff?
it's at OKSTProbs. If you want to follow my main account, it's at Keaton at Real, KeatonItreal _. And if you really want to help me out, go and report the at Keaton at Real, who has one tweet since 2013, so I can get rid of my underscore. That'd be absolutely amazing.
I dig it. I like it. I like it, man. All right, brother. Well, hey, man, thank you very much for your time. I greatly appreciate it. Because, like I said, I'm just trying to get this whole thing to grow.
Yeah,
And the only way the university grows is if we have people out there putting out the right stuff, right?
Yep.
Because if you're not, I don't know, if you're not helping with growth, in my opinion, then you're probably not helping a lot.
Yeah.
And you were one of the people that I looked at when I was getting into this. Because Tyreek Hill, again, he was on my Mount Rushmore, and I was like, all right, let's find this. Okay, oh, this guy, oh, that's pretty good. And then we just got to chopping it up, and I'm like, why don't you do this? Because I like watching other podcasts. Because let's be honest, man, when you watch other stuff, it makes you better.
Yep.
And so, yeah, get your thing back to going, and let me know whenever you do. I'd love to eventually team up and do something. Eventually, I know I talked to you a little bit earlier about doing some sort of NIL event at some point in time. So I'll definitely be hitting you up for that. In the meantime, I love it, man. I absolutely love it. Thank you very, very much. All righty, y'all. Well, everybody say hello to Mr. Keaton and then say goodbye to Mr. Keaton. And that's all we've got for this one today, y'all. Again, anytime that you can help bridge the gap and help the fan base with more connections, that's all we're here to do. Because at the end of the day, we get better, we get bigger when the fan base gets better. So thank you all for making this your first listen today here on Locked On Oklahoma State. God bless. Go Pokes. And we'll do this again soon. All righty, y'all.